So I'm going to carry on the theme of drawing people, painting people, figures, which some of you are quite interested in. Fine if you're not. The other thing is I've brought the lino printing equipment in, just because one or two people were interested before Christmas in doing a bit more. So that's here, and I'll keep it here for about a month. So if anyone wants to use it, that's here now. Store it here. So with this particular project, looking at people and people in either drawings or paintings. I brought, obviously got some of my sketchbooks here, so I do quite a lot of sketching, just people out and about, sketching from life, which we did a little bit of last week, and if you want to do a bit more, it's quite nice, just have a go at sketching each other, that sort of thing can be good. Other than that, I've got some photographs. So this kind of file here has all got figures in of some sort or other. Plus I've had a look on Pinterest and found some that are just kind of figures on their own. So I've basically just copied things off Pinterest. And I'll use one of those to do a drawing demo in a minute. Also brought some various books in. So just a bit of inspiration. So if anybody wants to have a look at any artworks, Edward Hopper's brought a few in that different people that have influenced me or that I've enjoyed at different times. So Edward Hopper's an artist that I was looking at when I was quite young, really. And I've always liked his work, and he does a lot of kind of people in environments, which has really stuck with me, and that's the sort of thing that does appeal to me, people within an environment, more so than a kind of formalised portrait, which isn't quite my sort of thing. But these sort of paintings really interest me, where you've got people in interiors, people outdoors, people sort of involved in doing something. That's the sort of thing I like. So he's an artist I quite enjoy. Another book I brought is this is a chap called Bill Jacklin, sort of contemporary artist. And he was somebody, I basically saw one of his books in the library once, and I really liked his pictures. So I've seen a few of his exhibitions. He's a Royal Academician. He's an English painter who paints in America. He lives in America. And he tends to make his paintings up from lots of little drawings and photographs. So they're slightly sort of imagined scenes or remembered scenes. And again, they're really mostly urban scenes. Got a few beachgates, but quite a lot of people and places and that sort of thing. So that's him. And this is a catalogue from an exhibition I saw a couple of years ago, Rob Poynton, who's an artist who's a very good plein air painter. So I've met Rob and painted with Rob a couple of times, and he's a fantastic artist. He recently had a commission with the Household Cavalry, so he was artist in residence with the Household Cavalry for a year or two. So I've seen some of his work, but he does very lively urban scenes. So it's interesting in that. That's a few bits of inspiration there. So as I say, that was the demo I did this morning. Last week I've really just concentrated on heads and faces a little bit with my demo, but I thought I'd do something a little bit more on full figures today. If anybody needs paper, we've got drawing paper here. And what I suggest is really some, maybe a few quick sketches. They don't have to be fully resolved, don't have to be completely finished, but really looking at the basic shapes and proportions. That's the thing I'd like to encourage more so than getting a really very finished result. Let's just move this around. So I'll use this chap here that I've got the interest right. What can work quite nicely, a bit like the portraits, is perhaps sketching out the proportions and the general directions of things with a lighter tone, either a light mark or a colour. So I'll just use this orange. So this can be quite a light start. And then perhaps going in with a bit more definition with something a bit stronger. So this chap, just looking at him, I think his head's on, his feature's on that sort of angle. I'm thinking his head's going to be sort of here somewhere. Obviously seeing a lot more of this side of the head than we are that side. So that's most of the front of his face would be there. His eye level is about there. And then we can see his back of his ear is about there. So, and he's looking down, so we've got a bit of an angle between the eyes and the ear. Perhaps his jaw in about there. I'm not going to worry too much about features as such, but if it helps to just make a few marks where they would be, that's probably enough. And then back of his head there. So we've got the middle of his face. I then try and look for the middle of the neck, which in this case is sort of going across here. So it's something a bit like that. He's got his head at a different angle to his torso, basically. So that would be the middle of his neck. His shoulders, I'm trying to work that out. Maybe level, it's difficult to tell. Maybe might be slightly higher that side. So again, that can be quite useful. Get a line for his shoulders, perhaps a line for his hips. He's got his weight on this leg here, and so this side I think is a little bit higher than this side than that side. So his hips are going to be slightly angled a little bit like that. Follow it through the middle of his torso. That's going to be about that sort of angle in relation to his face, and yeah, that's angling back that way, and his neck. So I can start to sketch in roughly where his rib cage would be. That's a bit further out, that's there. And his hips and his bottom there. As I say, his weight is going through that way, so that is come across like that. And you'll find that if you've got a standing figure, the centre of gravity is quite often over the front of the foot there. So if I dropped a kind of vertical line through here, that's going to go just right over the front of the foot there. So when I'm drawing people, I'm looking for these sorts of alignments. I'm looking for, what lines up in a vertical way. Obviously, if somebody's lying down, I'm going to be looking at things lining up that way. But I find drawing people, it's important to sort of get the relationship between the head and the foot. I'm thinking the middle of the skull, perhaps about there. Probably what I'm aiming at is the front at the top of the foot, about there. And it just helps to have this as a framework, really. So I'm thinking the rest of his shoulders there. The middle of his arm, and then, so that's the top of his arm, and then his forearm about there, and then working this side, something like that and that. And that's probably enough just to get things set out. Yeah, and I can then work into that. Hopefully you've got everything that's going to fit on the page. The other thing I could talk about is your basic proportions. So probably his head is going to fit in about 6 times in his body. 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So it is pretty much a head and then 6 of those. So that's worth thinking about when you're just planning your drawing out, when you're setting out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Should just about fit. The one this morning went off the bottom of the page. So I'll try and draw a bit smaller. Then once I'm there, go for something a little bit darker just to define things. So that could be there. I think I'll actually bring his eyebrows, eyes to about there. Nose. That's a little bit. Okay, a little bit of shadow there. His mouth. Chin. His jaw's going to be there. Let's get a little bit of his hairline in, and then work through the skull shape. As I said, back of the ear is to there. And the back of his head pretty much lines up with the back of his neck, which then just curves around there. So middle of his neck is coming over here. We've got muscles across there. And then shoulder shape. Another thing, I might be going a bit wide actually, I think probably because I'm drawing at an angle. One thing you can look at is sort of negative shapes. So if I just draw like almost like a rectangle around that, I can see that the space around, say from the shoulder to the face. So I think that's about as far across as I want to go there. And looking at these shapes, these sort of shapes between his arms and his torso, or this little shape here, any shapes around the body, they, if you try and train yourself to look at these shapes, that'll help you draw the overall shape of the figure itself. That can be something like that. I quite like to, as I say, like to draw through the middle of the torso first if I can. So his eyes there, so his one nipple's there, and the other nipple's about there. And then the side of his torso's coming in here. This is the middle of his torso here. A bit of muscle definition into there. Try and get that side in. And then a bit of shoulder, arm. And having a line roughly where you imagine the bone to be is quite useful, because you can then look either side of that line at the shapes of, say, the muscles here, or the shapes of the forearm. That curves that way. This is a bit of a gentler, broader curve. That comes down to here. When it comes to hands, I wouldn't worry too much about the hands, but maybe just kind of do almost like a kind of mitten shape that would, cover that whole shape, and then you can then break into that a little bit. Something a little bit like that. This waistline is there. As I say, slightly higher this side of the hip than this. That's curving there. This side, there's a lot more shape in there than there is here, so like that for his waist. His bottom's there. Obviously this leg is in front of the other leg, so the middle of his thigh is coming across here. So again, just go back and re-establish that. In that shape. And then that part, so that's going that way. This is a little bit, there's a bit of an angle there, but it's a bit more vertical. So I can go something like that. And then that's straight there. We've got a curve there, and then another curve on the other side, but I think it's slightly lower on the other side. That starts a tiny bit lower. I can start there. And I sometimes draw a little bit of one side and a bit of the other side. You keep working your way down, and that brings me down to about there, his ankle. And then really seeing the front of his foot there. And that's about as much as I can see with that foot, and then I'll come back here and work my way through the other, what I can see of the other leg. Something like that. And about there. And then that foot cuts across here. Yeah, so it's just that arm. That's a little bit closer in than that. So the idea is a working drawing, just trying to work out and try and find the relationships. I'm not going to worry about it being, too over polished, and if something goes wrong, I'll just redraw or just draw over the top. But it's sort of drawing where you're establishing shapes and proportions, general direction. So it's quite a nice way of working. If you want to borrow pencils, I've got loads of these pastel pencils. If you fancy trying this sort of approach, and some of these photos, you've got some quite dramatic, angles to look at, something like that. Yeah, a few different ones. So the idea is maybe have a go at 1, 2, and just got basic shapes, basic directions. When I was younger, I did an awful lot of life drawing, so I did loads of drawing from models. Used to go to evening classes, then when I went to art school, I did about 4 years. Did about 4 years drawing live models. So you just get loads of very quick poses usually with the live class. So you just basic shapes, basic directions, then on to another one. You might be drawing for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, just lots of practice. So this is my attempt to sort of replicate, in a photo form, something along those lines. Right. Okay.
Yep.